I'm not the girl that I used to be. I learned to heal that inner child, but I knew I had to face my fears. I knew I had to overcome. I knew I had to go through everything so I can be the woman that I am today. So,
hello there, and welcome to the Counselor's Kitchen, where the food is therapy and the kitchen table is safety. We want to have a conversation today, so we've got just the spot for you right here at the kitchen table, where we talk about life and everything it has to offer. So pull up a seat and join the conversation right here at the Counselor's Kitchen table.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of TCK Table Podcast. I'm your host, Davion Lewis, and as always, it's a pleasure for you guys to come and be a part of the conversation. Today, I have a guest with me, and she's a wonderful person. I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself.
hello, everyone. My name is Coach Therese Teasley, and I am glad to be here.
Awesome. And what do you do? I heard you say coach. What does that entail? You a football coach, basketball coach? What kind of coach are you?
I love that. I am actually an ICF certified breakthrough life coach. So I help individuals, men and women, receive their breakthrough, because so many of us are looking for answers, looking for hope. And so through my program, signature program, I just help discover your purpose, find your voice, and allow you to tap into your greatness. And we do it together as a partner. So I am an ICF certified, as well as an author, a speaker, and an instructor.
Awesome. I love that. So we have someone who's all of the things, as Miss Kim on stage would say, all the things. And that's great. How did you get started into life coaching? How was that? How long have you been doing that for?
Okay, I've been doing the life coaching for 4 years, and how I got started.
Oh, wow.
Right. You see, that's a long. And the thing is, I haven't had a lot of clients because I still went on my own personal journey, and I was working for other people, and I didn't really realize that I had. Yeah. So I was in the home for like 18 years, and then I said, let me get out of the classroom and start being a life coach.
Awesome. So I'm so glad to hear that. And what would you say is the best kind of way to define a life coach? I mean, what specifically do you feel that you do for your clients?
So basically, the ones that I work with, many of them I have experienced that they have experienced. So whether that's not knowing who they were, fighting pretty low self-esteem, and then feeling voiceless and powerless, guess what? And so I went on the journey first, and now I'm able to help others overcome life and go from surviving to thriving. So that's what happened.
That's dope. I love it. And so today we're the title of the episode is called Broken, but I'm Healed. So we just want to explore Coach's story. We want to give her the opportunity to kind of give her testimony, if you will. And of course, you all know the agenda is always to bless you as a listener. So we're going to start off with our word of the day. And our word of the day is violated or violation. The definition of that word says to break, infringe, or transgress in a lawful rule or agreement, promise, or instruction. Second definition is to break in upon or disturb rudely, interfere thoughtlessly without remorse. And the third definition says to break through or pass by force without right. So with that in mind, that word violation, what does that speak to you, and especially in terms of your story?
So the word violation, what does it speak to me directly, is someone embarking or embracing on your personal territory or your being. You can give them the permission or the authority to come into your life or around you in your situation, in your circumstance, and they're trying to take over you and your thoughts and your actions. So that's what it means to me.
Awesome. I know it was a whole lot of words being tossed there, but any specific word that you kind kind of want to dive deeper into, or just kind of in thought, hear that word and say, okay, that's the one?
The one for me would be overstepping my boundaries. So that just simply me like, you're coming into my space and I didn't invite you there. So you just take control of me and I didn't allow it. So that's what I believe.
Awesome. So y'all know how this goes. We love to really dive deeper into these words. And one of the words that I see, or a few of the words that I see, but one of the words that really stick out to me with that second definition that says interfere thoughtlessly without remorse. Sometimes when you have an aggressor or a transgressor that pulls into your space and takes hold or takes control of something that they were not permitted to take control of, that word thoughtlessly and without remorse, that to me, and we're not going to yield the wrong understanding. But what I do want to highlight is that sometimes people do things and they're out of their mind. That word thoughtlessly just kind of leads me to believe that person or that entity might be out of their mind. Literally out of they have no, it says thoughtlessly. So that means they weren't thinking about the things that they were doing, or they were not thoughtful enough to understand that there's consequences to their actions. Right. And then the word that follows is without remorse, meaning they're not really sorry about what they've done or the things that they have said or however they violated. They really don't have the capability to connect with not only what they've done, number one, because it's thoughtless, right? So that means it wasn't even on my mind, and therefore it can't be on my heart. You see what I'm saying? So thoughtlessly, without remorse, that really describes to me what violation is, what a violator is. And it gives us, and I'm not going to say this for the sake of anything, but to move in maturity, once we mature to a place, because that's what it's all about. In the interim, in the moment, we don't know what to do with violation. We don't know how to process that. You know what I'm saying? It whatever trauma comes with it, it's what comes with that. But you speaking of the word journey, as we journey through what we believe was violation, we should, if it works on us, if the journey works on us, we should then have a level of compassion for not necessarily the not the violator, but the violation. A level of compassion to understand that that person was not only out their mind, but they weren't connected to themselves enough to know that what they were doing was completely wrong. And that compassion should allow us then, and number one, to move in forgiveness, but not for the reason we believe, right, that the forgiveness, because there's a stigma, if you forgive that person or you forgive that entity or whatever, that makes you weak. No, it gives you a level of strength. But the forgiveness factor comes when you realize it wasn't your fault, right? That you're not to blame for the violation. Then because you have a level of thoughtfulness, you can be connected in your heart and have some remorse, right? For not only what happened to you, but the person who's thoughtless and out of their mind and can't connect. See, I guess what I'm trying to say is that's a scary place and that's a dangerous place for any human being to be. And of course, one of the main stigmas is mental health. You know, that's something that we don't talk about, especially in our community. That's something that we don't focus on. That's something that we don't understand. And we don't go through the process of really trying to get an understanding about mental health. Now, of course, we're not dismissing anything. A violator is a violator. And of course, there's consequences to every action. But what I do look at when I see that word without remorse, thoughtless, that just leads me to see that sometimes people, when they do things, again, like I say, they're out of their mind. And because they're out of their mind, they can't connect that thing in their heart. And that's a very sad place to be for any human being. And that requires some help. Go ahead.
Because you stand, so you done hit on so much, and I want to make sure I agree with what you're saying, and I want to know something, because like, if you don't know if they're not remorseful, it's because they know that they're doing it. And sometimes it's spirit, because sometimes we just look at a person as the physical, but we are made up in three components: the mind, the body, and so if the spirit is not right, and there's other factors, like it's so many spirits that we deal with, and sometimes we don't want to talk. We need to talk about that, because fear, anxiety, and all those other things, they are spirits, and we can't rest spirits, but we can cast them down. And if you know, like for somebody, violated me, something happened to them, so they might not know 9 out of 10 that it was something wrong with it, because nobody ever told me. And so I, honestly, because I see my aggressor to forgive. I forgave what happened, but I also had to forgive them for me. So I forgave myself. So it wasn't just because you mentioned something about forgiveness as well. So I wanted to know it is okay to forgive. You can happen. But one thing I realized on my journey, our body was everything. So we might get it, but we gotta give, so that way we can heal in our body. So we can say, what happened to us, we have to let it go. So the person that dealing with those different spirits, the fear, anxiety, they don't have no remorse, because they might not know. They did not know what they was doing in that moment. And my aggressor never asked for forgiveness. My aggressor never said that they did anything wrong. Because the child, I didn't know that it was wrong myself. I was young when it happened to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. So we've broken down the word of the day, and we're just going to dive deeper into the conversation. And so by now, I'm pretty sure you all know partially what the conversation is about. And we're going to mainly focus on the process of healing. Of course, we're going to talk about what needs to be talked about, but for the sake of healing, because there's somebody out there listening right now that needs the help and understanding how to go through a process to heal. And I thank you so much for coming on, for your telling and your transparency. And we're going to get right into the brink of everything. I'm just so elated to have you once again. So we're now transitioning into our food for thought moments. And this is where we dive a little bit deeper. And mainly what we dive deeper into, of course, these guests from now on are going to have stories, and they're going to dive into their personal stories, their personal lives, share that with you all who are listening. And again, for the sake of being a blessing. So we want you all to have an opportunity to hear that you can go through a journey of healing. So with that being said, let's go right into our food for thought. So our first question is, how does your story or, your situation relate to the word of the day? So the word of the day was violation. You did mention it, but tell us a little bit more about what that looked like for you.
So growing up, I was at the tender age of 4 years old, and my parents wanted someone to come into our home and watch. But watching us did not mean touch us. And so my baby, she was a young woman. I don't know how it was at the time. She actually molested me, and she molested me for I could say about 2 years, because I was 4 and so 4 or 5, and then we had ended up leaving. And so the thing was, I didn't even know what it all meant, because I was young and I couldn't process it. But what I did was I actually put up all these barriers. I put up all these walls, and I didn't know how to love, because that was love, or what love was supposed to be, because not only did I experience sexual abuse from the woman, my dad was actually abusive to my mother. So it was like,
like a double whammy. Yeah.
So it was like I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know who to trust because my daddy wasn't in a healthy space, and my mom, she was, and she didn't. We never really talked about what happened, so I didn't know how to verbalize what had taken place in my life. So that's what when I had to go on this journey, I was it was like I was voiceless, I was powerless, and I ended up turning into like I didn't have sex for a very long time. It wasn't until I was older. But me becoming older, I became very promiscuous. And so the thing was allow other people when I grew up to become an adult to violate me even more because I was looking for love, the love that I needed when I was younger, but I didn't get. I didn't know what love was. And it was like I was just allowing these people to do things to my body. And all happened to me when I was a child. So the thing was, all of these things, I ended up falling into depression when I was 25. And I wanted to life. And I was like, this life has to be so much more. All because being touched. I'm like, how can I make it in this life? And so I really wanted to end my life, but I ended up just going on a spiritual journey.
Wow.
And once I got on my spiritual journey, I realized what happened to me was not my fault. What happened? It happened for a reason so I can be the woman that I am today. And so I know it was like a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of just trying to figure out who I was. I was always overweight because of being violated. So it's like I'm an adult and I'm still fighting with those different things that happened to me.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I think that, and of course, we know that everything corresponds, right, in life. The Bible tells us that all things work together for our good, right? And so it's hard to, especially if you're from the outside looking in, or even if you're in the experience of violation, right, to say, how can this work for my good? But we'll talk a little bit more about that as we kind of dive deeper into your journey. So I appreciate you again for coming on and sharing. Another question is, can you talk about how you felt violated, meaning that what those feelings were, what those emotions were, and what that experience looked like for you? So at the like you said, the tender age of 4, reaching to that place, can you tell us from a 4-year-old perspective how that felt? And how that altered your emotional state of being?
So at the age of 4, I felt worthless. I felt like I didn't know if this was right, if this was wrong. I didn't know how to process it because at that age of 4, my brain was still being developed. So I couldn't factor feelings, the emotions all together because I'm like, is this right? Is this wrong? Is people supposed to touch me like this? So at that age of 4, I was like, I really don't know what to think. I don't know how to feel, but I know I became very numb. And I was like, I want to love people. I didn't know how to let people in. And I was angry. I was very upset and I was hurt, but I still couldn't process it all because I was wondering, trying to figure out why this person was touching me, why my mother going through what they were going through, and it still did not really regulate I didn't come into understanding until I got older.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. And that word you said, numb, that really does take its toll. It has its effect because a lot of trauma becomes numbing. And so if you're an avid listener, you know, in our past episode, Save Our Children with Dr. Arnetta Murray, we talked a little bit about trauma, and we talked about how we deal with trauma, and what happens to the brain is that our brain, it progresses, and then when trauma sets in, usually any traumas that we experience before the age of 7, they become our mechanisms for survival. And so what happens is that when we experience new traumas that look similar to those 7-year-old traumas or before, then we respond the same way. It grows and it progresses, and it may look, as far as your actions, it may appear to be different, but the mental space is the same, and the reason and the way and the why and all that stuff becomes the same. And so it literally, there's another book called Everything I Learned in Life, or Everything I Needed in Life I Learned in Elementary School. And it's really just kind of an ode to how we survive and what things are compact into our survival instincts, right? And a lot of those things come in and at the age of 7 or before, prior. So that word numb, it really does something for me, because that helps me understand that you experienced a standstill in your life.
I did.
And of course, that word numb literally just means to have no feeling.
Yes.
And so whatever area of your life that numbness overcomes, you have no feeling. And it really does make an impact in your life. Because again, if we don't ever get to the why, or we don't ever get to the expression point, and we bottle all of that up, it's like somebody throwing a pot of boiling water on you. And because you're numb, because your skin is deficient of the proper cells that causes you to feel, right? You still get burned. You still get the blisters. You still get the boils. You still get the skin peel. Graphic warning, right? You still get all that from the boiling water. However, you can't feel it. So the effects are still there. You still see, right? The person can see that you've been burned, but you can't feel it. And so the pain exists, the anguish exists, but to further that, the feeling and the being able to process that, it doesn't exist, right? So you get stuck. And of course, there's bravery. And I appreciate your bravery, like I say, for discussing this topic, because unfortunately it happens every single day. It just does. And it's so sad. Do you have anything to say before I have the next question? Okay.
I do, because like you said, it happens every day. And sometimes people don't realize how often it happens, especially in our community. And a lot of times people sweep a lot of that stuff under the rug. And so in my direct family, it happened to my cousins and it happened to but nobody talked about it. Yeah. And when we were younger, they waited until now that we're older to tell the story. So just imagine spoke up and said that other people were violating, we would have had a different conversation. Yes. So I admit that, but as an adult, I finally got some professional help. I actually did therapy. I have a life to help me process some of the trauma experience that. And so, yes, I was having some of those feelings, like my body fight and flight. And then all of the things that I went through, because I ended up having like a health scare, and it all was my childhood, and then to life as well. So it's just like what happened in the past. Even though I learned to let go, forgive, my body and my mind still
it's still affected.
It's still affected, and so a lot of people realize that it still weighs on you, even though you're not trying to think of it or remember it, but it still plays on you. And so I love the fact that I'm able to, go see a therapist. I'm able to listen to meditation. I'm able to exercise. I'm able to ground in order to not feel like I used to feel.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And so here's my next question. What became your fear as a result of your experience? So let me just kind of further along and give you specifically the definition of fear I'm talking about here. Fear is false evidence appearing real, right? So from that experience, what false evidence made the appearance of being real in your life?
So going back to like when I was abused as a child, and then how did that fear impact my life today or when I was younger?
Specifically, like I say, the fear is false evidence appearing real, right? So oftentimes when we're violated, like I discussed before, we get stuck in a place, right? And within being stuck in that place, life is still moving. Life is still happening, right? But we're stuck in this place, in this moment, in this time, and it keeps us often from progressing, right? So within the confines of the violation. It happened. That's factual, right? Nothing about that is false. Right. But it may have created something in you that shouldn't be there, that was not prescribed. You know what I mean? That's false. And so what was that fear component that was created in you as a result of that experience?
So for me back then, it was not being able to tap into my greatness. So I became very insecure. I became that person that was scared to like leap because I thought someone else would hurt. So it was like more like I started fearing things that I normally wouldn't have feared. So it was like I couldn't speak up. I couldn't be brave. I couldn't be bold. I couldn't speak like I really could not speak my truth because I didn't know what was going to happen because I wasn't doing anything wrong and something happened. So it made me fearful because I thought if I speaking, what if I started telling what happened? But instead, I put up all those walls. I put up all those barriers. I belittled myself. I made myself lower than what I really was. And then I started to gain the weight. I started to stop talking to people. I started to stop loving on people the way I should have loved people. Because
wow, that's something really to just hear. That you not only did you pause, but it caused you to kind of cave in and not have the freedom. That's a good word. Freedom. You put the handcuffs on yourself and threw away the key. You see what I'm saying? You put your own self in a prison and wouldn't allow yourself to be free to be who you are. Wow, that's interesting. And if that sounds like you as a listener, really take heed to what's being said and what's being spoken here, because I'm a firm believer that nothing we go through alone. We may feel alone because we don't know who's going through it or who's been through it, but there's always somebody who's been through what you're going through. Nothing new under this sun. And so one of the main things it takes is for us to be able to be vocal. Be vocal about the things that we go through, about the things that we process day in and day out, and the things that we struggle with. We have to be vocal. And I appreciate you for saying that, because fear, that false evidence appearing real, will cause you to say, I don't need to say nothing because can't nobody help me. Can't nobody understand. Won't nobody, you understand what I'm saying? Fight for me. And that's just it. It's false evidence that appears real. I love that.
But hold on, before you move along, I want to tell our listeners, like, do not, because it's like when you experience trauma, it can be frightening to get out of your comfortable zone, but don't be afraid to leap. Go. Now is your time to really express who you are, what you love. Start how to fall in love with yourself. You must fall in love with who you are. And don't be afraid to just leap right now. Because I know I was one of the ones that was quiet. I was one of the ones and I did not know how to talk. I did not know how to love. I did not know. But if I can give you one word or advice, leap, love, let go, beautiful. Be yourself and speak up.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. So how did your experience affect you in your different stages of life? And so specifically what I'm speaking to is as a little girl, right? You talked about that 4-year-old girl, as a teenager, as a young lady, and then now as a woman who's coming to your fullness. How, in those different stages of life, how did that trauma carry you or hold you or whatever in those different stages? And what was different about it, if there were any differences?
Okay, so from when I was a youth, from like all the way from when I was in elementary, like a lot of fights. I used to be a fighter because I protect myself, and I didn't want nobody to know my secret. So I was carrying. So I was burdened at an early age with these secrets. And so I carried that from elementary. So I used to have to fight to show who I was, and then even hide I was very standoffish. I didn't care about other people. I just wanted to become like learn of who I was. And so what I did was I ended up putting on weight as a teenager because I was like, I didn't want to be loved in a way that I shouldn't have been loved in. So I stopped loving myself. The trauma caused me to, I didn't care how I looked when I went to school, but I bet I was actually bullied. I was bullied all from elementary to junior high. It wasn't until I had a fight. I had to fight the girl because people, like, I used to fight my cousins and I used to fight just like when I was younger. But when I went to junior high, I had to fight this girl. And after I fought her, I never had a bully incident anymore. But it was just that I had to fight to protect myself, fight to prove myself. It was like I was always myself to others. And even into my adulthood, it was like I've been trying to prove myself. So even as a child, I had to prove myself. So to come into the adult of proving myself, I learned this is what I did. I went on that of really discovering who I was. So the thing, like the trauma, it happened. I had to prove myself. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my worth. I was insecure, had low self-esteem. And it was just like, I didn't even belong here no more. But it wasn't until that day when I cried out to God. And I was like, I want who I am. And this is when I became an adult. And he was like, you went on this journey, but I want you to see who you are. So I learned to talk. I learned to find my peace. I learned to find my joy. I learned to find my hope. I learned to just be who I am. So that's how all of those experiences, it's just like the trauma, it was with me. It didn't allow me to really come into who I was until I became an adult. And so now that I'm raising my voice, I'm speaking up and even in my power.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Amazing. And so my next question, and you kind of started with it, but in greater detail, what was the turning point in your journey? What was that day, that time, that moment, that incident, whatever, that made you say, okay, enough is enough. I need to heal. I need something different.
Yeah.
Okay. What was that experience?
So as I was mentioning, when I turned 25, I fell into depression. And it was really, really a dark time for me because I was in on my own. I had enough partying. I had enough drinking. I had enough being with individuals that I didn't have no business with. And so I cried out. And I told God, I said, I need to know that you're real. I need to know who I am. I need to know my worth. And so the thing was, I stopped going to church, but God, I want to build a relationship with you. I want you to really show who I am. So it was like I was in my room and I was just crying. I was crying out to God. I had lost my cousin and I was like, God, I just need you. So he was like, do you trust me? Do you believe in me? Like, do you really want to go on this journey? So in 2005 is when I really dedicated my life to God. And it was just like, I knew I was done. And I was like, I can't keep living like this. And he was like, Therese, let me just show you, like, you went through all of those things, but it was for my glory because I put you in those positions. And I needed you to know that I was always with you every step of the way, even though you endured some hard times. I was still there. So just 25 all the way to up to this year is when I really just was like, even though I said in 2005, I wanted to let go and just figure out who I was and just walk into this woman. It's like he has been there every step of the way and he keep blowing my mind in every step of the way.
That's beautiful. Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. And oftentimes we don't really understand or really see, as I mentioned before, the scripture that says all things work together for our good. Sometimes it's like, okay, that what good is supposed to come from that, right? What blessing is supposed to come from that? But when it says all things, it literally means all things: the good, the bad, the ugly, the uncomfortable, everything, the trauma. It all works together for the good of those that love God. And the thing about it is that once you tap into your purpose, I feel once you tap into your purpose, you'll see the strength of your foundation, even going through trauma, even going through valleys and crazy experiences, how the foundation of who you are becomes that much stronger. Especially, I feel that if you've not had an opportunity to explore who you are for so many years due to that violation, due to that trauma, due to whatever, right? You haven't had the opportunity to even discover who you are. It's like you said at 25, you kind of made that decision to shift, right? That means you went at least 21 years, right? Because you were violated at 4. So you went at least 21 years ignoring your fullness. So that means you got 21 years worth of fullness to discover, and you still got your current life and the rest of your life to continue discovering your greatness, right? And go ahead. I know you had something to say.
No, I'm just listening to you because
okay.
Right, because I did not know who I was. And then just think about it. My brain still did not process, and it did not go the way that it needed to. So I had to learn how to create new memories. I had to create new situations in my life so that way I can process. Even though I was living from a child's perspective, if that makes sense. It was like I really how to love myself, let alone somebody else. I didn't know spread my wings and fly. And I've always the same space that I am. I was always stuck in my comfortable zone because it was normal for me. So it was just like I was looking at it from a lens where I wish I could have been able to process things a lot different. But I feel like what happened in my past, it really got the best of me because I feel like I missed out on so much. But now I'm live, and so I'm glad you brought that out.
Awesome. And I heard you say a word, comfort zone. That's what it was. And oftentimes that's a part of that false evidence appearing real too, man. I'm telling you that we take what we think is a comfort zone, and really it's just a holding cell. It's just a space for us to be confined, right? Solitary confinement. It's just, here's your cube. Stay right in there. Don't come out. You don't need to see the light of day. You don't need. We'll serve you. The trauma gonna bring you your meals. It's gonna feed you. You understand what I'm saying? But it's just a solitary confinement, just a box that we're gonna stay in. Why? Because our trauma is feeding us, and our trauma is safe for us. And that's the false evidence appearing real. Our trauma becomes a safety net. That's what it does. It becomes a safe space for us that we feel safe right here. Why? Because I've been dealing with this since 4 years old. You know what I'm saying? It's just like being in a relationship with someone that you've been in a relationship for years and years and years. And you say, okay, I know who you are. You know, my fear, I don't want to go out and date somebody else. Why? Look, I learned somebody all over again. I don't have time for that. I just stick with you. Why? Because I know you. We here. You see what I'm saying? And this is great. This is good. I'm just so excited and elated. I appreciate you so much. So now we'll get into that portion in our food for thought where I talk about a quote. Everybody knows this is my thing. I find a quote that relates to us specifically in the space that we're in and the topic that we're talking about. And so I read a quote and it changed my life. And it says, "To heal is to face with love that which we previously framed with fear." What are your thoughts? And I'll read it again if you need me to, but what are your thoughts there? To heal is to face with love that which we previously framed meaning FRAMED, framed with fear. What are your thoughts about that quote?
Because I'm all about love. I feel cast out fear, love cast out everything. So anything happen or going to happen, and even like with your enemies, even if the people I restore it and repair it with love. So I think it's for all of us, because like if you feed it with hatred, if you fill it what is it going to do? It's going to continue to fester. It's going to continue to grow. So if you feed it with love, pass down, and it's going to help to heal somebody else because you coming from a pure place, a genuine place.
That's awesome. And in my kind of evaluation of this quote, right? It says to face with love which you previously framed with fear. So that word frame, right? We're not talking about frame as in who framed Roger Rabbit, right? We're not talking about giving an accusation, right? We're talking about frame like a picture frame, right? Because we talked just a few minutes ago about that trauma putting us in a box, putting us in a place, putting us in a holding cell or whatever, right? And life those traumas puts us in a box. We frame it, right? And we put it up on the wall and it's there. And the thing about it is we have to face it every day. And that's why I'm looking at it from the perspective of a picture frame, right? Because when you have a big, beautiful piece of art, you know, art is to be admired, art is to be looked at. And sometimes we hold our trauma with regard of art, right? It's on display always. So we have to face it. We have to face it no matter what. Oftentimes with that frame, we look at it from a fearful position. So as you said, you talked about how a lot of things set in and became fear for you. Everything you face, you look at it from a frame of fear, right? Yes. So the quote is saying, when you heal, you're able to face that same frame, that same picture with love, with compassion, with understanding, with wholeness. You understand what I'm saying? Being able to look at that same picture, that same painting, that same work of art with a level of love, the same way, and in the same sort of spacing that you once framed that same picture, that same trauma, that same event with fear. If I can look at it and say, you know what? Love. I got all the love in the world for me, for who I was. And again, this isn't about loving your violators, but having a level of understanding and compassion that, oh, they messed up too, and they need healing too. You understand what I'm saying? That's when you know you've healed. And like you stated before, and you can expound on that if you want to, but you said, you talked about how you forgave him and he wasn't sorry. You know, that person wasn't sorry. You know, so that's sometimes the outcome of having to face the trauma is being able to forgive somebody and being healed in that trauma, being able to forgive somebody they're not even sorry. They didn't think they did anything wrong. But that love and that compassion that you have for you and the level of love and desire you have for your life to move forward, you now respond to that picture, that frame with love instead of fear. And so I know you have a few more thoughts to share. If you have anything else to share on that, go ahead.
Yes, because of the simple fact, like where I am in my life today, I'm actually getting ready to get out of the box, like you said, because our situations sometimes put us in the box when especially our comfort zone, which is, I believe, like you said, the box. And so the thing is, like, I never wanted to leave my home, but because I'm looking at it from a new perspective. Like if I leave the place that I call home and get out here on my own, I'm doing it by faith and I'm also doing it by love because I was never meant to stay stagnant. I was never meant to be in the position that I am, but I'm learning to accept new challenges. In love, because I used to look at challenges as being bad because of what happened to me, because I've always dealt with different challenges and it didn't feel good. And so now, like I even used to be afraid of mountains. Guess what? I learned to climb the mountain. I learned to walk the mountain. I learned to be in the mountain because that the fear that I had put up, the frame, as you would say, I would look at it as fearful, but now it's not a fear to me. Instead, it's something that I've learned to conquer and overcome in order to heal. So it's all everything. If you look at how everything just ties in. So whatever you have been running from, I've learned to face it because that's all it is. You just have to face it, but face it with love and know that we can't be afraid of the unknown. We have to embrace the unknown and know that some things are not meant for us to know it, because if we know it, we would have been trying to run to it, but it wasn't our time to receive it. So now that I'm in a place, in a position, I am accepting the unknown because I don't know what's before me, but I'm accepting and believing that it's something good. That's why I do it in love and by faith.
Awesome. And so our final question is, where has change brought you thus far? And where do you see it taking you? And I know you started on it by talking about kind of stepping out on faith, but expound on it a little bit. You did speak on how you got to the point of making up your mind that I'm no longer going to accept this trauma and allow it to have control over my life. You said that happened at age 25. You cried out to the Lord. And from that place, you started making some changes, right? And I know you talked about your health journey and things like that a little bit. So expound on some of those changes and how they've kind of progressed you to where you are today. And then tell me a little bit more about where you see those changes taking you for the future.
Okay. So at the age of 25, when I went on my journey, when I cried out to God, I was like, God, really show me who I am. Show me my worth. And so 2013 is when it all happened for me. I lost my job. My parents lost their job and my brother did too. And the thing was, in that moment, I almost gave up because I lost my I lost my car, I lost my money. Yeah. I just lost a lot of me, but I ended up seeking God the even more, because I remember when I cried out to him when I was 25 years old, and here I was 33 at that time, and he was like, don't worry, because you told me you wanted to trust me. So I didn't realize I was going to have to trust him to this capacity. And so the thing was, when 2013, I just started going to church more. And then I actually it was like he prepared me for what was to come. And I didn't feel so bad. It was like I was in this new space and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what's to come. So moving fast forward, I actually got a job after like a whole year of no money coming in. I became a caregiver. I started doing administrative work. So I started doing the administration work, and then I actually started my business in 2017. And so I didn't know what that was going to look like. The name of my business is Driven by Purpose. And I was like, oh my God, all of the things that I went through, it prepared me for 2017. I knew I wanted to be a life coach, but it focuses on health and wellness. So life coach, nutrition, dancing, just creating a safe space for individuals like me. And so the thing was, here it is, 2017. I had my first event. Didn't even know about putting the event together. I started my business from scratch. The first person in my direct bloodline to start a business didn't know what they was doing while still working for somebody else and bringing my community together. It was like, oh my God, like I was able to do this based off of all of my experiences and knew how I wanted to treat my community. Because I don't know if you guys remember when I said that when I was younger, I cried out to God that I wanted to heal people. I wanted to help people. He was like, this is how you're going to do it. So this is what I prepared you for. So I had my first event in 2017. I brought so many different people from my community together to put on this event to provide resources for my neighborhood. And when I tell you that was a successful year and an event, it just made me want to do more. So the second year, 2018, I had my first women's empowerment. But on August, I can't remember. I think it was like August the 15th, my daddy, his health turned for the worst. And so he was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and we ended up losing him on September the 7th.
Wow.
And so for so long, like God had been telling me to speak to him and tell him certain things, but I didn't understand what it was and how he was preparing me for this transition. So we ended up losing him September the 7th. My birthday is September the 8th. So I lost my father a day before my birthday. And then I had the women's empowerment the very next day. So in that moment is when I gained my strength. In that moment, I knew that what I went through was really for a purpose, because I lost my father. And then here it is, I was able to go before women and speak to them, uplift them, even when I needed it the most. And so the thing is, I was 38 at that time. He didn't get to see me before my 38th birthday. Well, he seen me because I was able to tell him that I loved him, and I hadn't heard my father's voice for 2 weeks. I told him I loved him, and he was like, I love you. And so to hear him say those last words, that's what I needed. I know I'm a little teary-eyed, but I had to say this because of the simple fact I had carried so much hate and hurt for my father for so many years because of what he had did to my mother. And the thing was, I didn't never really tell him how it impacted me. So I never got that opportunity to tell him that he hurt me. And so the thing was, that's where that fear came in, because if I couldn't speak to my family, how can I speak to strangers? How could I tell them that how I was really feeling? That's why I said I put up all these walls, these barriers of protection. So the thing was, after losing my father, after doing all of that, here it is, 2020. It was 2020. I ended up having a health scare. And so the thing was, I was having digestional issues within my digestive system. And so the thing is, as a woman, we hold a lot of stuff in our stomach. And so I'm somebody, I know my blood type is B positive. I'm supposed to watch the foods that I eat. And so I'm supposed to be on a strict, like, vegetarian diet because it works for me. And so the thing was, I wasn't taking care of my body. I was 262 pounds, and I was grieving the loss of my father. I was going through so many different changes. The world with the corona, it stopped, and I wasn't able to hug people. I wasn't able to love on people. I wasn't able to be my full self. And so the thing was, I ended up having to go. I was able to lose weight. I lost 60 pounds in 5 months. Amazing. I was able to, thank you. I was able to deal with my father's loss, like his death. And then there was some other things that I had to face. So here it is, 2021. I wrote my first book. I actually wrote 2 books. I co-authored on one, then I wrote my other book. So it's like all of the things that I went through, it propelled me to be able to step out on faith, especially with the health scare, the loss of my daddy, with the molestation. I don't no longer live in the place of molestation. I don't live in the moment of my past. I have learned how to walk fully in my purpose, but I had to endure some things. But if I did not have a solid foundation with God, and if I didn't know he was my solid foundation, if I didn't have my own personal relationship with him, I would not be here today. So I had to go through the trial and the error. I had to go through the pain. I had to go through the fire. But I knew, like, after all the years, and I look back over my life, it was like it was preparing me for today. So with that being said, here it is, November. I am getting ready to leave my comfortable place, because I've been here all of my life. I've been in Michigan ever since I was a little girl. I did live in Arkansas for 3 years, but the thing was, I am stepping out. I'm coming to a new, unfamiliar territory, and I'm doing it by faith. And I'm not going to let anything or anyone stand in my way, because I'm learning to face my fear, because it is no longer my barrier. It's just a part of who I was, and it's not going to control me, but instead propel me to the next level. Because a lot of people don't know, I've been dealing with a little different pains and growing pains in my body, and it does not feel good, but it was a part of the plan. So I am glad to be before you guys and here and in this space. And I was glad to share my story, because I'm not the girl that I used to be. I learned to heal that inner child, but I knew I had to face my fears. I knew I had to overcome. I knew I had to go through everything so I can be the woman that I am today. So that is my story. And I'm Therese. And also, for those that don't know, I go by T. Nicole. So if you look for my book, it's T. Nicole. I'm an author, T. Nicole.
All right. Yes, we'll have more details on that in just a second, but we've wrapped up this portion of our food for thought. I just wanted to encourage you. I'm so elated again. You talked about facing your fear, and I always say it like this: you have to face your fear. Faith, the word faith, meaning believing beyond what you see. Because again, as we stated in the quote, the frame is there. The picture, you're going to see the picture, right? But there's something beyond that frame, right? And we have to face our fears. We have to look beyond what we can't see in order to get past the place that we're stuck in fear. And I also wanted to tell you, and just encourage you, give you my condolences on your father. For those of you who know, you guys listened to the first episode already. I lost my mother in 2018, and she had some issues, some health issues as well. So I completely understand. I started my catering journey after. I was already on it before she passed, but I had to really full throttle it after her passing. So I understand how walking in your purpose after your parents are gone, that's a hard place. That's a really a tough spot really to be in, especially when you just, you have that desire to make them proud or whatever the case may be. Even if you have some type of onset traumas and things like that you have untapped and untouched and undealt with. So I completely understand and sympathize and empathize with you on that as well. But I am more than confident that he would just be so proud. And the wonderful thing is that, oftentimes when we're growing through life and we're growing through life, parents, number one priority is to get us to a place where we can stand on our own 2 feet. Talk about that in the Save Our Children episode as well. The thing about it is that when we go through these traumas, right, like you already expressed, we get stuck in that inner child place, right? And I think part of that parental guidance, even if we're the blame, right, as a parent, is to help a child become an adult, stand on their own 2 feet, and that sort of thing. So I think he would be extremely proud that you have gotten past that 4-year-old child place stuck, and now you're a woman, because that's all a real good parent can ask for. If you grow into a woman, grow into a man, you grow into your own. So I just want to encourage you right there and know that he's proud of you, and that journey, you keep going, because there's nothing like getting to the other side of the promise, right? Yes. It's sad. You think about, and for those of you who know, this is not specifically a religious podcast, but I am a man of God. I'm a minister, so this is what I do. This is who I am. So take it how you need to take it. But for those who are in the wilderness for 40 years, you understand what I'm saying? It was only 3 or so that made it, or a handful, let me just say, of folks that made it. And pretty much everyone who was literally delivered out of Egypt did not make it. They all died. Yes. And literally was a whole new generation of people that went into the promise, that got to the other side of the promise. So I say all that to say this: keep going in your journey so that you can see the other side of the promise. Because it's one thing to see the promise and never get to it. It's one thing to experience having the purpose and understanding how to be aligned with your purpose and never getting there. So continue in it, and trust God that he's going to see you through to the other side of the promise, the side of the promise that is the promise. So I appreciate you. Now we're in our takeaway portion of the show. And so this is where us as hosts, co-hosts, hosts and special guests, we give you all sort of an overview, something that you can completely take away from all that's been said, right? We're going to condense it down, pack it tight, and potentially challenge you to do something for the next 7 days. Of course, these podcasts come out weekly, and I get messages from you all about the takeaways and how they help you. And so that's not going anywhere. We want to challenge you. We want to give you tools, equip you with some knowledge and wisdom and understanding on how to move forward with these next 7 days as it pertains to the things that we've discussed on today. So do you have your takeaway already ready? Or do you want me to go with mine? However you want to do it.
So I just want to tell you guys to just face your fears. So challenge yourself to do something that you ain't never did before. And don't worry about the outcome, but instead know that it's going to work out for your good, but you must believe that. So continue to not worry about your past, but embrace your present. So that is what I have for you today.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. My takeaway for all who are listening, especially when you deal with a subject matter as sensitive as this, and understand. My first challenge for all those who are listening is to gain an understanding. Oftentimes, we're not self-aware because we don't know, and we simply don't know how to get to know what we need to know. And so my first informant, my first challenge for the next 7 days is to gain an understanding of what your trauma is. It does not have to be a sexual molestation. It does not have to be as extreme as rape. It does not have to be as extreme as abuse, verbal or physical abuse. It could simply be something that you really loved and had a passion about and had hope for as a child, and your parents didn't come through for you. That can be as simple as that sound, that can be a trauma in and of itself. Somebody not showing up for you the way you hoped or wished or needed in that moment for them to show up for you. That can be its own trauma. So as minute as it may seem, or as extreme as it may seem to you, get an understanding of your trauma, why you feel or felt the way you feel or felt, and then embrace that it's okay to have that feeling. And it's also okay to shift those feelings. So that is, and ultimately that is a challenge for all of you who are listening, because it's going to take some real energy. It's going to take some real focus to, number one, understand the trauma, understand that space, right? Because oftentimes it's ignored, especially when it does not seem as major. So, and I've talked about this in my in episode 1 of season 2. This is my story. I've talked a little bit about how some of my past traumas and some of the things that I did not get the support, I did not get certain things that I needed. You know, oftentimes I would look out in the crowd if I was doing a performance or if I had a game or whatever the case may be, and saw nobody in the crowd. You know, that for me was a trauma, because it made it hard for me, number one, to trust people, and number two, to allow people to do things for me, because I'm so used to just doing everything on my own. I got it. I don't need no help. You know what? You can tell me all day long you're gonna do this, that, and so, but I'm always have a contingency plan. And so those are traumas, and there are triggers to those traumas. So all of these things I had to dig deep and understand, right? But once I understood them, I number one could feel it. Number two, I could be okay with what I was feeling and processing. And number three, I was able to learn how to shift or switch those traumas on and off, because the false evidence that appears real oftentimes is if it resembles it, it must be it. And I'm going to respond as if it was it. I'm going to say that again. The fear that false evidence appearing real becomes in our life. If it resembles it, it must be it. And I'm going to treat it as if it was it. Whatever that it is, whatever that trauma is, whatever that emotional connection, mental connection, spiritual connection is, that's the control of our trauma, is that everything that resembles that trauma, we respond the same way we responded that first time, whatever that age is, as if it was the same thing. And oftentimes It's not even the same thing. It's not even the same, but we'll frame that with fear, right? And we won't accept things in love. Why? Because we still in this.
Right.
So this is why I'm challenging us to gain understanding. This is why I'm challenging us for the next 7 days. It's going to take longer than that. But for the next 7 days to focus, right? To get an understanding, to be accepting of the feelings that we feel and what we feel, and then learning how to shift what we're feeling, right? Because oftentimes we miss opportunities. Why? Because we think that person or that energy or that entity or whatever is coming in, and they come in and they step into us almost like the same way Uncle such and such stepped to me when he touched me.
Yeah.
And this man is not Uncle such and such.
No.
He might love you. He might want to deal with you. You don't know that person's intentions until you explore and until you give yourself permission to explore, right? But that fear will put you in a place where, now you look like Uncle Bubba. No. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Let's dive off the diving board, off the mountain, off the cliff. Let's dive deeper into some of these waters and really swim in them and feel them and get an understanding for them, because that's the only way that we can shift. Because now when this man steps to me, I know, okay, you're not my Uncle Bubba, but let me set up my standards. Let me put some things in position, not as walls, but as checkpoints. Right? So that now I can have more time to assess who you are, what you're doing, what your intentions are, and really get an understanding from a place of love and support for who I am, rather than a place of fear. And then I missed an opportunity for my life to be blessed. So that's my takeaway. Get an understanding, feel it, and then learn or get guidance on coping mechanisms on how to shift those traumatic things for you. That's my takeaway. I'm sticking to it. So we have
hold on before you hear that, because he gave y'all so many nuggets and jewels, and I hope y'all listen to it. But I want to leave you with this.
Go ahead.
Just breathe. Just breathe. Release. And believe that it's going to be okay while you're doing the challenges. And you take these takeaways, breathe, release, trust. Keep the faith and know that it's going to be all right.
Yes.
But you got to breathe, because so many times we don't breathe. Breathe. What you say? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Breathe. And then one more thing: forgive yourself. As you find out and discover what it is that you need to heal from, forgive yourself. But breathe. I'm
putting this in my phone right now.
Okay. All right.
And what's funny is one of my other podcasters, he does t-shirts. So I'm gonna text him as soon as it's over and say, listen, breathe, release, and believe. There we go.
That's it.
All right. Okay, so we are on our like I said, we're closing out. Any final words, and then tell us where we can get your book, where we can reach you, social media platform. If somebody needs life coaching, tell us how to just connect with you. Okay.
So first, I want to say thank you for having me on the show, and my condolences to you as well, because I know it's tough, but I know it's getting better. And I just thank God for you. I thank God for this platform. I thank God for this opportunity, and I am so glad that we connected. And I just look forward to whatever's to come from this. And so again, thank you for this. And so my last takeaway is, guys, just continue to tap into your greatness. Continue to discover your truth. Discover who you really are, and just live. Never let go of the moment. And what I mean by that, don't never let go, but don't take the moments for granted, because so many times we just sit up here and we think we got every day and we got all day. No, you don't have every day. You don't have all day. Just live moment by moment, second by second. And don't waste it, because it is precious. And so I can be found on Facebook at T Nicole. That is TEA Nicole NICOLE. And I can also be found on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube under Driven by Purpose. Purpose is PURPOS3. Again, that is Driven by Purpose, PURPOS3. And you can find my book. You can find more out about me on my website, www.ThereseTeasley.com. That is www.TERESE Teasley, TEASLEY.com. But if you go to Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Driven by Purpose, that's all connected to me. So thank you.
Beautiful. Awesome. And as you guys know, those links will be in the bio of this episode and the description of this episode. In the description of the episode, you guys know you can find me at the Counselor's Kitchen on Facebook, _Counselor's Kitchen, Instagram, and the Counselor's Kitchen on YouTube. So thank you all for listening or for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. And please make sure that you guys take these takeaways. Again, my DMs are always open. Emails, counselorkitchen@gmail.com. So like I say, y'all know where to reach me. I love your feedback. I thank you all for pushing me to get to season 2. And we're just excited to explore all of these stories with some great people. So I love y'all. Y'all be blessed and be great. All right. Y'all have a blessed one. Bye-bye.